Okay, hello everyone once again, and welcome to this learning webinar on Gender Inclusive Care Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Program, jointly implemented by SAFEEM, UN Women and Bopinc, and funded by Canada's International Development Research Centre and the Visa Foundation. This program aimed to help women turn the persistent and disproportionate responsibility of unpaid care work into business opportunities and develop pathways towards full economic participation. My name is Amar Gokhale, and I welcome you on behalf of UN Women. I see that still more audience is trickling in, so maybe we wait for 15 more seconds and start thereafter. But in the meanwhile, please feel free to use the Q&A function to pose any questions throughout the webinar. And although we have a packed agenda, we will try to take some questions throughout the webinar. I see that still more audience is trickling in, but I think we should start now. So over the next 1 hour, we will take you through some of the key learnings from this program. And you will also hear from some of the inspiring entrepreneurs who have been part of it. We have a packed agenda of roughly 4 segments. The first being a snapshot of the results, followed by a panel discussion on how inclusive care entrepreneurship can be a pathway towards women's economic empowerment, followed by an entrepreneur spotlight, and finally a special announcement followed by reflections and closing. We also want to hear from you, so stay tuned. But before we begin, let us hear some welcome remarks from IDRC. Next slide, please.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Amar Najawin. I work as a Senior Program Officer at the International Development Research Centre. And on behalf of IDRC, I'm happy to welcome you to today's learning event. So Canada's IDRC engages and supports research in the Global South for the Global South to address critical knowledge and innovation gaps. And gender equality is very central to our programming. IDRC has been working on issues around unpaid care, the care economy, and paid care for almost 15 years, accumulating into research programs across the world. Where I am now in Nairobi, we have an initiative called the Scaling Care Innovations in Africa. In Latin America, we've been supporting researchers and movements to address the policy conditions to create better care systems. And in Asia, we're really proud of the work that we've been doing on engaging the private sector and building a better ecosystem for care businesses to work and thrive. So on that note, both IDRC and UN Women really recognize the role that innovation plays in enabling the care economy to meet care demands, which are growing every day, while empowering women to fully participate in the labor market. Unpaid care is truly one of the biggest structural barriers to gender equality, and work like this to build care systems and realize that the right to care is a basic human right in the region in Asia. UN Women and IDRC have launched several initiatives on this point. So the Gender Inclusive Care Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Program, GICEEP, was launched in 2023 with IDRC, the Visa Foundation, UN Women, SAFEEM, and Bopinc. So over the last 18 months, the program sought to strengthen a gender inclusive care ecosystem through research and piloting an innovative base of the pyramid models in India and Bangladesh, also running a second iteration of the Care Accelerator for SMEs across the Asia Pacific, and working with other ecosystem players, including policymakers, on ways to deliver an inclusive care economy. So while we will hear from partners shortly, I want to highlight a few key results that have come out of this program. So GICEEP has supported over 3,000 women to enter or continue to be in the labor force in and outside of the care sector. Through the program, 9,683 individuals across Asia Pacific are being served by 14 care delivery models that were made operational or strengthened in 2024. 14 care entrepreneurs were supported to improve their business models and leadership skills while driving decent jobs for women, with an almost 50% increase in the revenue of 11 care enterprises. Through the Better Skills, Better Care program, in a pilot, 132 women were enrolled in skill development programs, with 97 graduating with new skills and knowledge relevant to the local care economy. Around 4,000 community members, including 1,500 women, were reached through behavioral change initiatives surrounding social norms and perceptions on men and boys' engagement in care work. And finally, in Bangladesh, the team worked with BRAC to undertake a series of mapping of available childcare models serving low-income households. Using this learning, Bopinc developed a prototype financial model for community-based childcare centers for low-income households in peri-urban areas in Bangladesh. Throughout this initiative, there's a component of community building. In 2024, the Asia Pacific Care Forum was launched as a South-to-South exchange where UN Women brought the Global Alliance for Care and a bunch of other organizations, over 200 participants for 19 countries, to address the need to transform care systems in Asia and really drive a regional movement. So with all of this, it's evident that GICEEP and the previous work that we've been doing with UN Women on Care have contributed to an improved understanding of the way in which, innovative care delivery models can really meet the needs of women and girls throughout the region. So I'm very, very proud of this work that's being done in this program. And on behalf of IDRC, I'm welcoming you to have a great learning event and learn from all of the partners. Thank you.
Thanks, Amar. And just to pick up on the project itself for the Gender Inclusive Care Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Program. So as Amar mentioned, this was really started with a design that wanted to address the immense amount of unpaid care work that women are performing in our region, and at the same time, harness the power of care entrepreneurship in demonstrating that it can help to support decent work for care sector as a whole. We do know that the care sector is incredibly feminized, especially in our region, but also across the world. And there is immense potential for the role of entrepreneurship, particularly impact entrepreneurship, in driving forward benefits to support women to free up their time so that they can spend time instead of necessarily having their time used to work on childcare or to be engaged in childcare and other forms of care, but to then instead use that and have that freed up time to engage in other opportunities. And if they choose to work, to be able to have that chance to do so. At the same time, we recognize through this project that care entrepreneurship can be a driver, especially care enterprises that employ many women in the care sector, for pushing forward and really trying to drive decent work opportunities and strengthened positions for women in this field. So with that in mind, what we realized was that one thing that was quite lacking was that there is a lot of evidence in terms of the role of entrepreneurship, but for care entrepreneurship in particular, UN Women and IDRC have been working over several years to build that case and to conduct applied research. And this particular project harnessed the power of several other partners, including the Visa Foundation, Dharma Life, Titli, Bopinc, SAFEEM. And we really worked on each other's strengths and complemented each other's abilities and different skill sets to try and deliver a project that was an ecosystem approach. And what we mean by this is using both applied research as well as action. We tried to demonstrate and also test what is the role of care entrepreneurship in driving some of the outcomes we wish to see. So the project itself was designed along 3 pillars. And the first pillar was looking at the role of researching care needs as well as piloting care delivery models that were innovative, particularly for low-income communities in India and Bangladesh. And a major focus was on also trying to understand where can we insert and where can we build on opportunities for developing women's economic empowerment, particularly looking at jobs, but also looking at women having better jobs, even if they are employed. A second area of work was the Gender Responsive Care Entrepreneurship Accelerator, and this was Asia Pacific wide. This work, UN Women was working very strongly together with SAFEEM to have an accelerator program that supported businesses to develop their business models, but at the same time set clear gender targets and action plans so that they might also be able to become gender responsive SMEs themselves. And the third pillar was trying to tie both these 2 pillars together, but also really bring out the message to build a movement on care. There is ample evidence that the care sector is becoming increasingly important in our region. However, we need to capitalize on this momentum quite strongly. We need to work together. It's not going to be one actor alone. It needs to be a whole of government, whole of society approach. And this is really the intention of this project, to engage multiple partners, multiple actors, and bring forward and understand better the role of care entrepreneurship. So with that in mind, I can present a little bit on the results of the first pillar, and I then turn to Amy to present a bit on the results for the second and third pillars. But very quickly, in India and Bangladesh, what we did was we had two arms. In India, particularly, we had a model called Better Skills, Better Care, and these were integrated childcare and vocational training centers, which were innovative because they didn't just provide childcare, they also provided a space for women to access training opportunities, business skills, and upskill themselves. And this was rolled out in a pilot across 3 villages and serving over 160 families. It was a short period of time, but we see some really promising results. And very quickly, these centers have become one-stop spaces and community spaces offering skilling, offering childcare, and community-driven services like internet for the wider village. What we see is that over 100 plus women who were enrolled in this short period, 90% of the women who used both the childcare services and the training services are now in the job market or are actively seeking work. So this is very promising. It's a small pilot, but now we also see that it's been validated. We see that new jobs have been created in the care sector, and businesses have also have been started by the women who took on these training courses, and they've started micro enterprises in tailoring, embroidery, small scale food production, apart from working in the childcare centers themselves. And we see some promising signs, though this requires a lot more work. We see that social norms have begun to shift, particularly attitudes of men and women. And we see very, very encouraging signs that men have increased their agreement that husbands should be supporting childcare in their community. And this has increased by over 50% since we surveyed them in the initial setup. So that's quite promising results that we would like to now see moving forward to scale. On Bangladesh, a similar exercise was conducted, but this was more on the research side, where primary research and first-hand insights were found, particularly talking to low-income communities themselves. Often we talk about accessible, affordable, and quality care, but we need to also understand from the perspective of communities in Bangladesh who are low income, what is it that their needs are. And what we found is that there are several models that are operating. There are multiple models of different types, and they vary from home-based micro-entrepreneurship models that are operating in slum areas, to factory-based employer-supported care models, to other center-based models, as well as digital platforms that are all in existence in Bangladesh, aside from government centers which are running. We also see that there is quite a diversity of funding. That is, the source of funding varies. There are government-funded centers, there are community-driven centers, there are those supported by care enterprises, but there are also those that are purely privately funded. And there is certainly promising signs that there is an increased recognize of importance of care services and childcare for low-income communities, but there is a patchwork of funding and there is a patchwork of delivery, and there is really a need for a holistic plan of action. So from this particular pillar, what we have realized is that care entrepreneurship indeed is able to drive benefits for women, particularly in supporting them to join the workforce, to be able to explore new employment opportunities, and to be able to have jobs in the care sector itself. And this does have ripple effects for families. We have seen some quite positive results where families have increasingly emphasized the importance of early childhood education and learning. We also see that of the 101 children who had been enrolled in the centers in India, we see improved learning outcomes on their part as well. A second area is that care indeed needs to be a public good, given the scale and the sheer number of people that need to be served and the importance of regulating this sector. However, public-private partnerships and community-driven design are going to be crucial. What's really important is that we can't go it alone, and it'll be really important to explore innovative financing modalities, whether it's blended or working together with various different actors, and we need to include a gender lens throughout. Finally, we see that attitudes and social norms can shift, but behavioral change takes quite quite some time. So moving forward, we're very happy to share that some of the work in India is again now being scaled further through a different project. And we can, again, it demonstrates that this model is also workable. But we do also know that much more work needs to be done together in the ecosystem so that we can take this work in a more systemic way forward. So with that, I move to pillar 2 and hand over to Amy.
Great. Thank you so much, Feroza, and lovely to be here with all of you today. I know we are tight on time and we have quite a big agenda to get through. We will share the slides with you later if you'd like to watch at another point and look back, and we will be sharing more details, but a very brief overview of some of the key results of Pillar 2, which was the Asia Pacific Care Accelerator. We ran different tracks. Within the Entrepreneurship Accelerator, we followed business growth, and then we also had a gender equality track where we supported the SMEs to become gender responsive, as we call it, in their policies and practices using the Women's Empowerment Principles, which is a framework UN Women uses to engage the private sector and advance gender responsive businesses and practices. I won't go into all of the details, but just to share that we really saw a major increase in business growth, as well as commitments and actions achieved from all of the 11 enterprises that formed our cohort to taking action for gender equality. Through the delivery, we had 4 integrated modules that we took all of the cohort through that followed business and gender and really took an integrated approach. So we were seeing how can you grow as a business that is viable, potentially financially attractive to investors, but also has gender practices, and how can vice versa that help your business and seek new resources or partners. I think we're having a slight issue with the screen, Feroza, potentially, but I will keep going. Oh, thank you. Great. We also had a financing partners track where we tried to engage the ecosystem and investors to ensure that we're looking at both the supply and the demand to get a thriving care ecosystem for SMEs. We also had an arm looking at broader ecosystem activation and also advocacy, working with our entrepreneurs to take part in multi-stakeholder panels and really spread the word. Moving on from there to Pillar 3, as Feroza explained earlier, was really our advocacy, learning, and ecosystem building pillar. And one of the key elements that came out of this was the establishment of an annual Asia Pacific Care Forum. We launched this in 2023. This was also the kickoff of our Care Accelerator, and we were able to hold the Care Forum again last year, bringing partners together from across Asia Pacific. And this has really been established as a platform where we can showcase some of the results we have looking at base of the pyramid solutions, innovations in care SMEs, providing services across the region, and look at the different models that came out as well across the program. It's been really important for networking and visibility for the entrepreneurs, and also facilitating South-South exchange so we can share learnings from governments, from the private sector, from civil society alike. We've also seen this start to build a movement and inspire different actions. We've had many different partners, governments, and private sector join the Global Alliance for Care, which is convened by UN Women. And we've seen this as well in diverse contexts and countries. And we've seen governments actually also taking action and looking at those multi-stakeholder partnerships. Finally, one of the exciting elements that came out of Pillar 3 was really building a movement and a network of gender-responsive care SMEs. So at the Care Forum, we launched NICE, the Network of Inclusive Care Entrepreneurs, which was founded really and ideated by some of our current entrepreneurs and previous entrepreneurs. You'll be hearing more about NICE in the coming weeks. We also worked with the entrepreneurs to develop a toolkit on gender-responsive decent work for their care workers, so that we're looking those elements of care provision, but then also those who are providing the work themselves. To round out this part, I'm just going to share with you all that we do have some more exciting findings and publications coming up that are forthcoming from the project. This is our learning event today where we're giving you some highlights of what we're doing, but we'll have a lot more coming from you, and these are forthcoming soon and will be published in Q3. We'll have an output from our Care Forum last year, which was really rich and had some really great insights. Also, the project in India, Better Skills, Better Care, will have a learning and impact and results report. We'll also have a report looking at the promises and also the potential of care delivery for base of the pyramid and low-income communities, focusing on our work in India and Bangladesh. And then also we'll have a learning and opportunities brief coming out for the Asia Pacific Care Accelerator. So lots of things to stay tuned to, but I'll stop there and hand it back because we want you to actually hear from some of the voices that participated with us in this project.
Thanks a lot, Amy, and thanks, Firoza. Let us now welcome our panelists to hear about the role of care entrepreneurship as a pathway towards women's economic empowerment. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Amar. I'm hoping I'm coming through all right.
Yes.
Perfect. So while we have our panelists come online and turn on your videos as well, please. It's been an absolute pleasure working with care entrepreneurs on this particular project. And the work continues. We have a lot of learnings and challenges that we have encountered. And in that challenges is where we wanted to share that through this particular event. The care economy, we do understand it has a very disproportionate share of unpaid care work that is happening today, which is limiting a lot of the economic opportunities, especially for women. And that is why we believe, amongst the panelists and myself, that inclusive care entrepreneurship can surely be a pathway for this. And for this panel, we have with us a very distinguished set of individuals who have excelled in their own journeys and their own firms in bringing efforts to mitigate this disproportionate share of economic opportunities. So on that note, I'd like to welcome the panelists, Rahat, Gaurav, and Sumaya. We'll quickly kick off with a quick round of introduction. I'll go first. We'll keep it to a minute. I'm Tom Sebastian, ladies and gentlemen. I work with SAFEEM, which is part of the SeedStars group. SeedStars and SAFEEM, we are a venture capital firm investing in early stage startups across emerging markets. And we also are an entrepreneur support organization working on programs in partnership with Bopinc and UN Women. I'd like to pass on to Sumaya. We go in the order of Sumaya, Gaurav, and Rahat. Quick introductions, please.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. I'm Sumaya Bushra. I am working as an impact manager at Bopinc, and I'm based in Bangladesh. I am leading the gender and diversity portfolio in Bangladesh at Bopinc, and then also very passionate about care and have contributed to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumaya. Gaurav, over to you.
Hi, I'm Gaurav Mehta. I'm the CEO of Thermalife. So I'm based in Delhi. I've been working on women's economic empowerment for the last 15 years, based out of India.
Thank you, Gaurav. Rahat?
Hi, everyone. This is Rahat Hussain, co-founder of IDRC. We provide training to youth, especially women, and as well as we have a platform which is called IDRC, where we provide job placement and also ensure quality of care.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, panelists. So we'll kick off this discussion, and it's a lot of brainstorming that goes on in this discussion. Yeah, so we'll keep it quite fluid. The first question, Sumaya, that we had for you was in the line of work that Bopinc has been doing, and you've been doing a lot across the world as well. What kind of support makes the biggest difference for women-led care businesses at a community level? What have you come across?
Thanks, Tom, for the question. Yeah, I think like working across the entire Bangladesh ecosystem, like low-income ecosystem for childcare, and then also looking into examples from India and my very recent travel from understanding the ecosystem of Nepal cares. What I have seen is that what really makes a difference is, I think, three things that when it comes together is first is the money, the second is about the skills of the caregiver, and then third is the support and recognizing the care from from a higher end. I'll explain a bit. When it comes to money, so you see this woman or this care business where the people who are working for it, they're really doing a very noble job. But you said there's barely any fund that's there for this care ecosystem so far. And there might be actually some investment coming in for care customers. So like where there's money for improving the quality, the accessibility, affordability. But when it comes to the part of monitoring, when it comes to training, skills development, there's barely any fund left for that. And I think that when there's more fundings coming in and more recognition towards it, that's for both for care customers but also for the caregivers. I think that's really a game changer for putting this care economy into action. The second part that I highlighted was about skills. The care workers that are investing their life into this career, I think it's very important that there's a capacity building opportunity for them. There is a professional growth, not only like coming and spending their entire life as like a single position caregiver, but if there's a professional growth that they see within their job, and also if there's a formal recognition through a certification or through government recognition, I think that really boosts up their confidence to stick into this ecosystem rather than moving into some other
Right.
sectors.
Right.
Yeah, and finally, I wanted to highlight that having a proper policy support, so like a support from the government, in terms of like promoting their work, and also like maybe bringing in some, formal policies, that would also help break the stigma within the community that care is not just an informal thing; it is formal, and having that
Right.
government support would break that stigma.
No,
So yes,
that makes.
skills. Yeah,
I think that's spot
John,
on.
go ahead.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm sorry, I'm just speaking over you a little bit at this point, but I think you hit the nail on the head, because this is exactly what we also noticed within the project: the lack of finance, both for care entrepreneurs and high growth ventures, but also at the bottom of the pyramid, for skilling and recognizing professional working and kind of upskilling them, and also in terms of formalizing from policy that care entrepreneurs, that's an actual sector that can, that has recognition, that has benefits. Gaurav, I just want to shift over to you as well. Now, Gaurav, at Dharma Life, you've also been working with rural businesses in rural India as well. Do you share similar learnings that Sumaya kind of elicited right now? What have been the learnings of Dharma Life, especially when working with women startups and growing care businesses?
So thank you for the question. I think from our perspective, the community work, I mean, working with women at the village level, there's obviously certain barriers you're trying to bridge from the beginning, right? So I think the first barrier would be building. I think it depends on where you are in India. It varies a lot, but in a lot of cases, it's the barrier of identity. So even the kind of social norms primarily. So they can't step out of the house without permission of the family members. They cannot engage in work activities, or if they can, then they would be burdened by other responsibilities like the care, right? So these are the issues you would face normally when you start working with women. So then what we've been doing is, step by step trying to reduce these barriers and address them at the community level. So normally the way that works is you first try to build alignment with the family, right? And first with the person, build that kind of interest and excitement to do something, to step forward, to join the workforce. Then it's kind of aligning the family so that there's no conflict, and then systematically addressing other barriers. In this case, the care barrier, obviously, in this program was one of the key ones, where we worked on providing a care option for them at the village level, where they could come with their child, so that at least then when they step out, they don't, the other responsibilities do not suffer, and then no one can actually say something about this. So this was one thing I mentioned. Then the other quick thing, given time, is around, obviously you do that and it takes a lot of time. So we set up the care business, to the second part of your question. So we set up these, centers where, we would co-locate skilling and care, early childhood care, and also after school tutoring, because that's obviously another responsibility, for the.
What was the last point again? Could you just go
After
back? What's the last point?
After school tutoring. Yeah, because again, you even if you address the early childhood, part, you still need care at the other times of the day, and also then obviously for older kids as well. So that's why we looked at that. And while we're setting up the care business, it's obviously not easy, because when you're starting this, a lot of trust barriers exist, right? So you have to build a reputation and brand first, because what are the options? The options right now would be largely government options. Not that the government options they're also great options, but then they address primarily vaccination and other topics. And here, providing another option for care first requires you to build a brand around this, build trust, confidence, right? Because ultimately, you're kind of dealing with the most vulnerable groups here, right? Especially especially children. So that's the first thing. And second thing is then you have to look I mean, we really pushed at making it aspirational because so English tools, other topics, right? So people would really be excited on, would this be a platform for the kids as well as for the women? So these are just some things, and I can go on, but given time, let me pause here. So
Now, I would love to continue hearing all the learnings from Women and Bopinc because it's very valid. And interestingly, what you mentioned about gaining trust and brand is very, very important. And this is where I want to bring in Rahat. Rahat, you guys have been doing a fantastic job with IAT Care. We're fortunate to continue to know you and call you friends. In your business at IAT Care, you do a lot of combining of digital technologies with community-based models, right? And often when technology comes into the fore, trust building becomes harder as yet, right? So just want to kind of hear your perspective on how IAT Care's approach of combining digital tools with community-based models, how has that been helping expand the economic opportunities for women, especially in Dhaka, where you're so active?
Thank you, Tom. At AdCare, we're working to create more job opportunities for women. Actually, for underserved areas, we target the areas that have a lot of women that's living there, and we do bring them up to our training center institute and give them training programs which help them to become professional caregivers. And also, we connect them through our platform. We connect them to home-based elderly care or child care or nursing support. While we're still in a process of actually developing the full digital platform, we do use simple tools to match our training caregivers with the clients. We use those kind of tools to actually connect our community where the women are there, especially social media or community networks, to help them actually provide the technical and soft skills that will be prepared them for the training jobs. So we are not only focusing on Dhaka, also we are focusing on abroad market as well. So we do help them out to seek jobs outside of Bangladesh. We are currently processing in some of the countries we're doing, especially in Romania, Slovenia, and Italy and Germany, where we are providing them that opportunity. We are also partnered with currently with the ILO and EU, where we will be sending caregivers in Germany and Italy by providing the skills and cultural training as well as the skills training. So our approach is very community-based. We try to actually build local, go into local areas, build our trust, and identify the women as well as the men as well, who wants to work, and also support them through training and job placement. And when our technology will fully launched, we will help them to make this process faster, easier, more transparent, so they can also feel safe, identified, and income generating work in the care sector.
Makes sense. Now, just a quick follow-up, because I think you mentioned an interesting point, which of how you're kind of looking at supporting caregivers, of course, with skilling, but also with the platform of job opportunities to probably Eastern Europe and Germany and other European countries. The common concern that would come in such platforms is, of course, the safety of the women that are traveling abroad. So how do you really, align with that fear? Because the women who do work from you come from backgrounds that are quite underprivileged. So how do you really balance it out and ensure that your platform and your system can assure security?
Right. So we believe in self-migration. We actually closely, for that, we actually close with the embassies and the ILO because they are also concerned about self-migration. And when we do the job placement outside of Bangladesh, we look into the employers. We talk with them first. We like to know what would be the working conditions and how they will be actually helping them to, like the photo jobs and what would the working conditions. So those are the things we do look into. We set the interviews with the employers and employee. So we kind of like work as a bridge between the employers and caregivers. And they can also choose if they feel like this working condition they can good for them, then they can take it. If they do not, or even if they goes to outside of Bangladesh, and we also support them with our legal team as well. So we support them through the partner that we have in that country. So with the recruitment agencies that are recruiting from us, we also work with them closely to ensure that they have a proper workplace that's meant to be there, right? So that's
Fantastic.
what we use directly. Yeah.
No, that's a solid approach, and of course something that that is in line with what Soumya and Gaurav are also mentioning of bringing an aspirational level into care entrepreneurship, where care entrepreneurship is not just taking care of people within your community, but it offers meaningful work, it offers benefits. And Soumya, I want to tie that in back to what you mentioned earlier, where you talked about a very interesting aspect of working with governments and policymakers to bring a formalization for this workforce. So what's been the learnings and efforts that Bopinc has been doing in this? What have you kind of uncovered in your work in trying to bring a formalization? How have the authorities been responding to it so far?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I think for most of the time that we have spent in understanding the care sector for Bangladesh, we have seen that the government, of course, is investing in putting up care centers, but also bringing in policies that would support childcare and also like different cares. And now they're also like detailing out the different aspects of care. And I think one thing that I really wanted to mention here, Tom, is that it's really about understanding this care business is not like a typical, viable business that you can make profit from. I think it's a shift in mindset that we really need to understand that it's a business that is for the community, so that has to be some kind of a semi-public business, and there can be more supports coming in like tax breaks or tiered pricings, and supports coming in directly from the government, like setting up these centers for low-income communities. But it has to be there. We cannot just assume that this is a business that would really make go on a break even or make profit.
Yeah,
so,
of course. Yeah, it's a fine balance. I mean, coming from us we're investors, as I mentioned earlier as well. So for us, we're always looking for companies that have that pathway to growth as well. And this is where care entrepreneurship can take those pathways. And so I've just been told that we need to wrap up quickly. So I'm going to skip over some of the questions I had for you, Gaurav. Apologies for that. But I want to pose one common question to Rahat, Gaurav, and Soumya, and just maybe take 30 seconds to a minute to just formulate a response, because I'm looking at a big bang answer here. So what's that one bold action or change that you believe at Ayat Care, at Dharma Life and Bopinc, that would essentially unlock the full potential of the care economy for women in Asia Pacific? Yeah. So anyone just feel free to just pick up and just start off. The mics should be open. So I think, what's that one big bold action?
So I think for Bangladesh, it's the biggest bold action should be is that government involved when they look into care economy, because thanks to you, Norman, they have been done a lot on the childcare and the care entrepreneurships. We also look into the senior elderly care as well. So our government needs to look into the whole sector as a whole, because there's a different components in care economy. And through that, actually, our accelerator program, I got to know a lot about care economy, which I never thought of. And a lot of approaches, which is amazing to know that this economy is so big. So I think the first thing we need actually, the one thing that we need is more of a comprehensive policy that covers all the areas altogether, including the finance, including the childcare, including the caregiver protections, including the supporting the entrepreneurs, also financing models. So these kind of things need to be looked into the broader scales rather than specific ones, because what's going to happen is that it's not, we're talking about couple of components together, but we're not looking into a bigger picture. So I think
so
the policy,
a unified policy
right,
is what we're looking at. Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll move to the next one. Gaurav, Soumya, just feel free.
Yeah,
Soumya,
I just wanted to add something with Rahat. I really like his point. And I think it's also very important that we look what is there in the community and what's needed, rather than just us ideating about like a care model, just picking up from what is really organic and practical. I think that's very important also to look into.
Love it. So farm from the needs of the community rather than imposing on the community. Got it. Gaurav, last word.
Just one line. I think care should be funded as a public good, not as a private burden, quite simply. So that means that's the only thing about that. Interesting.
That is a lot of food for thought, Gaurav, because that can spark another discussion of where does financing for public good come? Who's responsible, the government, people, or investors? But thank you so much, Rahat, Gaurav, and Sumaya. This has been short but exciting. I wish we could do this for longer, but thank you so much for all the wonderful work done by your organizations and for your time today. With that, I hand over back to Amar. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for that, Tom. And thanks to our panelists for the engaging discussion. I would now like to invite Panchali, Pranjal, and Pramila ji to speak about their experiences. Over to you, Panchali. Thank you.
Thank you, Amar, for the opportunity to bring grassroots voices to this platform. I'm Panchali Tamli, Senior Chief Manager from Dharma Life, and I'm based out of India. Today, we are very delighted to have with us Pramila Didi, a Dharma Life entrepreneur from Kocha village in Ranchi district of Jharkhand, India. She's been very instrumental in setting up our Samarthya Center in Ranchi, and today I take the opportunity to invite her to share her inspiring journey and experience from this program. Pramila Didi, आइए आप अपनी जुबानी हमारे साथ बताइए आपकी कहानी।
सभी को झारखंडी जोहार। मेरा नाम परमिला देवी और मैं झारखंड के रांची जिला के प्रखंड कांके के होचर गांव में रहती हूँ और मैंने धर्मा लाइफ में 2018 से एक उद्यमी के रूप में ज्वाइन किया है। धर्मा लाइफ एक गांव की महिलाओं को मजबूत बनाने में काम करती है और मैंने इसमें बहुत सारी परियोजनाओं में काम किया है, जैसे सोलर लाइट बल्ब और साफ ऊर्जा, स्वास्थ्य ऊर्जा वाले चूल्हे, जैसे क्लीन एनर्जी प्रोडक्ट गांव के लोगों के घर घर पहुंचाया और उनके लाभ के बारे में उन्हें जागरूक किया और बिक्री भी की। उसके बाद MSMC जो हमारा स्वास्थ्य हमारा चॉइस है, उसमें सैनिटरी नैपकिन के बारे में महिलाओं को, किशोरी लड़की को बताया कि महामारी के समय होने वाली जो संक्रमण से बचाव के लिए सैनिटरी नैपकिन का पैड का यूज करना, उसे नष्ट करने के बारे में लोगों को जागरूक किया। इसी दौरान मैंने देखा कि हमारे गांव में बहुत सारी महिलाएं जो काम के इच्छुक है, कुछ सीखने के इच्छुक में है और वो गांव से बाहर नहीं जा सकती, शहर दूर है, गांव में कोई ऐसा सुविधा नहीं है और बाहर जाने के लिए टाइम भी चाहिए, ट्रेनिंग के लिए पैसा भी चाहिए, ये सब उपलब्ध नहीं था। इसी बीच धर्मा लाइफ हमारे जया प्रोजेक्ट चलाई जिसमें महिलाओं को उसी के हिसाब से उसी के गांव में ट्रेनिंग दिया और वो ट्रेनिंग से बहुत सारी महिलाएं अभी अपना पैर में खड़ा हुई और अपना घर चला रही है, घर परिवार देख रही है। लेकिन उसमें देखे कि हम कुछ ऐसी महिलाएं भी हैं जो जिनके छोटे बच्चे हैं, वो नहीं आ सकते सीखने के लिए क्योंकि उसके घर में कोई बच्चा देखने के लिए नहीं है, सास ससुर हैं, पति हैं जो घर में रोक टोक करते हैं, बाहर काम करने ले जाना है, ऐसे वैसे बहुत सारी दुविधाएं थी। इस बीच फिर बीते वर्ष 2024 में हमारी धर्मा लाइफ के तहत सामर्थ्य सेंटर खोला गया, जो हमारे गांव के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा वरदान के रूप में साबित हुआ, क्योंकि इसमें महिलाओं के और बच्चों के लिए बहुत अच्छी भविष्य भी दिखी। और जब सामर्थ्य सेंटर चालू किया गया तो हम घर घर जाके उन्हें महिलाओं को उनके परिवार से, उनके पति से मिले और सामर्थ्य सेंटर के बारे में उन्हें जागरूक किया, बताया कि हमारे सामर्थ्य सेंटर में आपके लिए ट्रेनिंग और बच्चे के देखभाल के लिए सारी सुविधाएं हैं। और घर घर जाके जगह जगह में महिलाओं को माता समिति भी बनाया और माता समिति में सारी लोग को बुला के वहाँ भी उन्हें जागरूक किए कि हमारे सामर्थ्य सेंटर के बारे में लोगों को तरह तरह की सारी जानकारी दिए। तो अभी हमारे सामर्थ्य सेंटर में 50 महिलाएं से अधिक जो सामर्थ्य सेंटर से ट्रेनिंग लेके और अभी खुद की दुकान चला रही है और अपने पैरों में खड़ा है और अपने पति का सहयोग कर रही है घर परिवार चलाने में। तो और हमारे सामर्थ्य सेंटर हमारे बच्चों के लिए बहुत ही अच्छी साबित हुई, क्योंकि बच्चे सामर्थ्य सेंटर में उनके माँ जो है सो एक साइड अपना ट्रेनिंग करती है, अपना कौशल सीखती है, और दूसरे तरफ बच्चे का देखभाल होता है, बच्चे को सिखाया जाता है। आफ्टर क्लास भी चलता है उसमें जो बड़े बच्चों का है। तो माँ भी खुश है कि हमारे बच्चे हमारे सामने हैं, बच्चे भी खुश हैं कि मम्मी भी पास में ही बगल में है, तो दोनों अच्छे से अपना दोनों का देखभाल हो जाता है। तो इसी तरह हमारे सामर्थ्य सेंटर में बच्चों की बहुत फायदेमंद हुआ बच्चों के लिए, क्योंकि उन्हें बच्चे के हिसाब से, उनके ज़रूरत के हिसाब से, उन्हीं की पसंद से बच्चे को खेल खेल के माध्यम से उन्हें सिखाया जाता है, पढ़ाया जाता है। जो हमारे गांव में सामग्री उपलब्ध है, जैसे फूल पत्ती फल वगैरह से बच्चों को सिखाया जाता है, ताकि वो बच्चे देख के छू के समझ सके और उनको सोचने समझने की शक्ति माने मिले। और बच्चे अभी बहुत खुश हैं और माँ भी खुश है, क्योंकि उन्हीं की संस्कृत और रुचि के आधार पर बच्चे को यहाँ ट्रेंड किया जाता है। तो हम भी बहुत खुश हैं, क्योंकि ये सब हुआ था। गांव के लोग भी बहुत खुश है, बच्चे भी, और हमारे गांव के अगल बगल जितने भी प्राइवेट स्कूल हैं, तो उसमें से कोई कोई सर आए हमसे मिले कि आपके प्री स्कूल में जो बच्चे हैं उन्हें यहाँ से निकलने के बाद हमारे स्कूल में दाखिला कराइएगा, हम फ्री एडमिशन देंगे, आप इनके माता पिता को प्रेरित कीजिएगा। तो ये सब मेरे लिए बहुत खुशी की बात है। तो मैं धर्मा लाइफ के सारी कार्यकर्ताओं का बहुत तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करती हूँ, और यूएन मंच को भी, जो कि आज हमें मौका दिए और उस लायक समझे, क्योंकि हम ग्रामीण महिलाओं की आवाज़ को देश के कोने कोने तक पहुँचाने का जो ये पहुँचाएं, उसके लिए तहे दिल से शुक्रिया। और मैं चाहती हूँ कि हमारे गांव जो सामर्थ्य के आने से समृद्ध हुआ, उसी तरह अन्य गांव को भी सामर्थ्य समृद्ध करे, और हमें भी बीच बीच में अपना धर्मा लाइफ सपोर्ट करते रहे, ट्रेनिंग मिलते रहे, ताकि हम भी अपना गांव समाज को सशक्त बनाने में समर्थ रहें। सभी को मेरा जोहार, क्योंकि टाइम थोड़ा कम है।
हाँ।
ज़्यादा नहीं बोलूँगी।
Johar Pramila Devi. Thank you, Pramila Devi, for sharing your deeply inspiring story. She has been very instrumental in setting up the Samartha Center in Kochar. Pramila's work in sensitizing, counseling, and training the women shows how grassroots action drives sustainable change. Our BSBC pilot continues to demonstrate how linking skilling opportunities with care infrastructure, especially in rural and semi-urban settings, can be truly transformative. It's not just about creating jobs, it's about unlocking women's time and potential by addressing care responsibilities through dependable support systems. However, care businesses in rural and low economic areas face systemic challenges. It may range from affordability to gender perceptions and workforce shortage. At Dharma Life, while setting up the Samartha centers, we identified local women for the preschool intervention. These women were not formally trained, but their interest and zeal to provide care services and contribute to local care economy was commendable. We collaborated with Titli to identify these barefoot care workers who were trained, provided on-site support to develop and deliver care and education services among children and women. I would now like to take the opportunity to invite Pranjal, founder and CEO of Titli, to share his and his team's experience in how skill development became important for the care sector and provide insight on the way forward in care economy. Over to you, Pranjal.
Panchali, thank you so much. So I think Pramila Didi covered most of it. How an empowered, how a skilled woman can, completely ignite the entire care ecosystem in a village. So I think I can't emphasize enough on the importance of skill development and credible certification in the early childhood care and education sector. And what we saw here was transformation of local women, as edupreneurs, and to significantly improve their self-worth through capacity building, guidance, and certification. And as you said, Panchali, they were like, the main objective of the program here was to empower rural women become edupreneurs in the early child care and education sector, use natural resources as core teaching aids, so that we are able to build playful, engaging learning spaces which are frugal. And third, most important, is to involve parents and communities and as active partners. And in that process, I think there were these 3-4 things that we did. One was definitely, working with you to select the edupreneurs, to assess children, to understand where they are and where we want them to be, to kind of conduct very, very contextual training to guide them through the process over 6 to 8 months, 10 months, and then finally a government certification. And this is something that also Soumya mentioned about the importance of capacity building, community support, and effective certification. And that's exactly what we did here, to provide them that government certification for building their self-worth. And as Gaurav had said, that it's about making it aspirational, and I think that's what most edupreneurs were able to feel towards the later part of the intervention. And as he said, that care needs to be public good. I think care definitely needs to be public good, and we need to have more and more participation from investors, from the government, but also a lot of participation from the private sector to enable the ecosystem in a way we can measure the outcomes, so that it's easier for people to invest and to see the outcomes. Thank you so much, Panchal.
Thank you, Pranjal. Thank you, Pramila Didi. Actually, thank you for bringing such inspiring experiences and stories from grassroots. Listening to both of you makes us feel how grassroots leadership, skilling, and community-based care entrepreneurship models can drive meaningful change. Thank you again for making this session fruitful. Over to you, Amar.
Thanks a lot, Panchali, and thanks, Pramila Di and Pranjal. We are coming up towards the end of this webinar soon, and I would like to take this opportunity to speak about an exciting upcoming program that will explore multidimensional impact creation through and on the intersection of care and climate entrepreneurship. The UN Women Care and Climate Entrepreneurship Accelerator, supported again by the Visa Foundation, and part of the UN Women's wider initiative, the Gender Action Lab, will empower women-owned and diverse small businesses that focus on the care economy, the green economy, and the intersection of both economies. It will address the urgent need for climate action and innovations in the care economy in Asia Pacific and in the Latin America regions. Recognizing the critical roles that women play in building a sustainable future, the program will provide women-owned and diverse enterprises with essential business support, mentorship, and access to care and green economy focused networks. It will also foster cross-regional collaboration and knowledge sharing, and will engage policymakers, advocates, financiers, and enterprise support organizations to strengthen the ecosystem for impact businesses and to catalyze further investments. So if you are a business operating in care sectors like childcare, elderly care, labor-saving technologies, or domestic worker services, please look out for this upcoming program. Or if you operate in green sectors such as renewable and green energy, water security, circular economy, green mobility and transportation, energy efficiency, or climate resilient agriculture, nature-based solutions, please keep an eye out for this program, which will be launched imminently, and we invite you to be part of this exciting program. So before we move forward, we would love to hear your feedback. So if we can move on to the next slide, and I request you to go to menti.com and enter the numeric code that you see on the screen or scan the QR code to answer a few questions. It will take only a couple of minutes. Maybe we wait for just a minute while people get into Menti, and I can then share my screen to show the questions. So maybe Firoza, if I could do that, that will be great. All right. I hope everybody can see my screen. I'll just wait for a couple of seconds while people are answering the questions. For those of you who haven't joined yet, we'll put the code to Menti into the chat again. Okay, I see that most people have answered, so I'm going to move on to the next question. All right, so I'll just read out the question. What is most important to transform care systems? Is it supporting care entrepreneurship, redistributing care work from women to men, valuing care work in economic calculations, or strengthening family values? Okay, I see that most people are agreeing with valuing care in economic calculations, which is very good to see. All right, since most people have answered, I'm going to move on to the next question. So please rank the following stakeholders in order of their importance in transforming care systems: governments or policymakers, care entrepreneurs, investors or capital providers, men in general, and workplaces. Okay, I'll wait another 15 seconds. I see most people have already answered. Maybe another 10 seconds. Okay, moving on to the next and last question. How convinced are you that care entrepreneurship is a pathway to women's economic empowerment? Okay, perfect. Thank you for your inputs. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And I'll request my colleague to share her screen. Yeah, before we move on, we would now hear some reflections from Catherine from Visa Foundation.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Catherine Lindquist, and I am representing Visa Foundation. At Visa Foundation, we believe that empowering entrepreneurs, including women entrepreneurs, can be a catalyst for creating sustainable and inclusive economies. It's no secret that women entrepreneurs have the potential to unlock $2.5 to $5 trillion into the global economy and are more likely to reinvest into their families and communities, making them key contributors to poverty reduction. Yet, these entrepreneurs have often been excluded from early-stage investments and resources. It's one of the reasons why it is important to support programs like the one we heard about today, the Gender Inclusive Care Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Program, that help women turn the persistent and disproportionate responsibility for unpaid care work into business opportunities. All the entrepreneurs that you heard about today, from their triumphs to the small steps taken to get there, face challenges that are not of their own making. Our goal is to help eliminate these barriers and enable them to take one more step towards realizing their full potential. And it happens by working together. I believe it is our responsibility as funders, nonprofits, and local leaders to work together to provide holistic solutions that help entrepreneurs succeed. Thank you to everyone who's helped make this program successful, and a special thank you to the entrepreneurs. Your energy, passion, and ideas are vital to paving the path for more caregivers to enter the formal economy and helping ensure that we create a future where everyone, everywhere can thrive. Thank you.
But thanks again to all our speakers. There are a few who have not spoken today, but have been part of the program and have really enriched it immensely. So thank you to all of them too. And thanks to you, the audience, for being patient with us and for your time today. We look forward to your continued engagement on this very important topic. Thank you. And with this, I close the webinar. Bye-bye.